shed before.
Before they get the damn building. Like a long time. Really? Because you'd have to build a dam.
We own the property where the dam is. Or my property.
But then,
Too much on it.
is there a lot of, it's in that parking lot, where the people that.
You're trying to put it in.
Then I got to figure out.
Man, I think they make a lot of sense. We've already this sooner or later, you gotta kind of say, well, enough is enough. It's not extortion. It'd be hard to build it because that's what they want to do with a lot of the dams, you know, that were built years ago.
Well, good evening, everybody.
Maybe.
That pizza smells good. Feel free to leave a slice. It's great to see you guys again. And I'm joined here by Nusaiba and Tony from my office. And we had a great time last meeting going through the Build a Bond exercise with you guys. Just so you know, I was also asked to do the same exercise Monday of this week with the school board. So they wrestled with the same things you guys were doing. The good news about all of this is everybody seems to be pretty much on the same page. There's a few differences of things that we want to talk about and kind of share you where all the different groups landed. But I think we're pretty close to everybody coming to consensus. So tonight is basically going to be to review what you guys did last time, talk about the differences, and then see if we can come to a kind of a meeting of the minds proposal that we can take to the school board. And also Rachel has preliminary results, I guess, of the community survey that maybe it's after I go through the kind of the tally of where everybody landed, then maybe we can talk about that before we move forward. Okay, so we're in the last phase of this process other than planning for the board presentation. And that'll be the last part of the meeting where we're going to look for volunteers to help with that. Okay, these are the guiding principles that you guys all talked about. And I think we can go back to these after we look at the summaries, but I think you guys did a good job of kind of following your goals as you made the decisions that you made at your table groups. Remember, we all kind of agreed on a $7 million bond with the $4 million matching fund, so an $11 million total. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few sheets here showing where people landed. So starting with the high school. So you can see there's the school, the project, the budget number that I gave you guys, and then table group 1, 2, and 3. So these are what we're showing you are the ones where there was pretty much full agreement, although the numbers were a little different. So everybody agreed on plumbing for JFK at 90,000. 2 groups said HVAC. I just picked half of the 3.2 million, and then 1 group had a slightly higher number. On electrical, 2 groups were at the full 900, and then group 3 was at 180. I'm just curious, group 3, you guys remember who you were and why you ended up with the lower number? Was it you didn't want to replace lights or electrical panels, or
was group 3 the one that just did the percentages of the total?
maybe that
I think
was
that's
it.
what group 3 at this stage.
Yeah. Okay.
I should have taken a picture of our paper. Well, I'm wondering, was it because we're hoping that some of that could be picked up by the maintenance budget?
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Isn't there a grant they're applying for?
Yeah. So there is a grant for lighting. I I think it's not, I mean, I think it's, the amount of lighting was lower than replacement of electrical panels. So that number 180 would probably pay for some of the electrical panel replacement, but not all. So that's probably something to keep in mind. Does 180 really make sense at the high school, even if you're not doing lighting? So just, you know, kind of parking lot that, we'll get back to it in a minute. Roof and drainage, so the middle school roof and drainage was 170. Again, I think probably this group just took a percentage, like group 3 took a percentage. Plumbing, HVAC, and electrical, you know, in general, it looked like on plumbing and electrical for most of the schools, the groups just took the number from the you know, the proposed overall project budget. The wiggle room was on HVAC. And so you'll see that where groups kind of set targets, budget targets. And granted, you know, you guys don't have a detailed list of all the things that need to be fixed, so it's a little bit of a guess. But, you know, that's what we asked you to do, to sort of think about how you might spend the money, given that the need is greater than the money you're going to have. And then at this school, everybody seemed to agree with replace those windows. There was the idea of just doing the coating over the exterior siding. But I do want to talk to you guys about, there was some discussion also among some people about, does that really make sense? Should we do the bigger project, replace it, and just be done with it? Plumbing, again, other than group 3, everybody's on board with the full meal deal. Now, since the last meeting, I met with the mechanical engineer who did the assessment of all your buildings. And then I followed up with Marty. And so one thing that I think is a little maybe new information is the plumbing number for this school seems much higher than maybe the need really is. So the assessment called for full replacement of all the domestic water, all the piping for everything throughout the school. And I talked to the engineer and he said, well, his understanding, he's trying to remember back 2 years, but there were just multiple leaks everywhere. Even though this is the newest school, the piping was in bad shape. So I followed up with Marty. He said, I don't think that's really the case. I'm not aware of ongoing plumbing problems here, other than the fire sprinklers. That's its own number. It's within the plumbing, or that's the replaced dry sprinkler system. So it's its own number. So I think there's some wiggle room there, and we can talk about that. I think there's a chunk of money that maybe everybody thought we needed to do here on plumbing, and maybe we don't. Replace the dry sprinkler system, and then that was my number. Marty since then got a quote. I mean, it's a very broad quote, but a bigger number for a quote, so we'll probably need to bump that number up a bit. And then HVAC, which different groups had different opinions about. One of the things I talked to Marty about and to the engineer about was, okay, obviously there's not enough money to do everything. What about the possibility, how feasible is it? And it'll vary school to school, but to do some work now and some work in the next bond. So if you're thinking of doing everything you need to do in sort of phase 1, phase 2, you know, and the next bond would be about 7 years from now. That's when everything drops off, and maybe, you know, the voters would be interested in another bond at that point. What work, you know, could wait for, and what work really should you prioritize now? So I'll talk about that in a minute. So the consensus, if we looked at, you know, again, kind of combining different groups' numbers, We got to a total of about 8.5 million of, you remember we asked you like what goes in the 7 million and then what goes in the 4 million. So the 4 million then was additional projects, additional HVAC. And that gets you to about 3.5 million. So that gets you to more, that gets you more like to 12 million, which is too high. So, and it includes things like the water piping at the school that we know we don't need to do. So if you guys can hand out those sheets. So what I printed this out because I have a more detailed spreadsheet. It's a little hard to see on the screen. Oh, good, Marty's here. Wanted it to print in color, but the printer wouldn't quite accept it, so it's in black and white. Thanks. Okay, I'm trying to get the same thing up on the screen, so bear with me. Okay, so okay, so if you go to the last page, just cut to the chase. It's the far right column, at the bottom, it's 10,060,000. So that I got to that by basically sort of finding a compromise, what you guys have come up with, but also deleting all the plumbing at the school, not all the plumbing, but the water pipe replacement. So that saved a ton of money.
Okay, so I need to verify with you the water, the plumbing or the dry system?
The dry system's still in.
Okay. Because I have an example if anybody wants to see it. I had it broke again this week.
So the sprinkler system replacement is still in,
Okay.
but the domestic water is out. So we can go over this in a second, but maybe now is a good time. Marty, actually, not to put you on the spot, but you and I chatted about what you think, because you're, in the weeds with this stuff. What would you recommend as a priorities, knowing what needs to be fixed?
Well, at first, and I think we've all talked about this, at least for me, I've been doing this a long time, and it always starts with fire life safety. And then, that's the security access. That's the safety of the students, the fire alarm systems, which includes the dry piping systems and our systems to keep the schools from burning down. And then, that also falls into that category of security access, the safety and security of our faculty and students, that's what we're here to do. And, then after that, it's the environment that the teachers are teaching in. It's the HVAC systems. Are we providing clean air? Are we taking care of our windows where we're not getting water intrusion, siding, roofing? So that's, for me, that's where everything falls in the order. The concession stand now, the football field, the sewer, is broken out there. Rachel and I got a plan to make it through the season, but we're looking at the stuff that we're looking at the needs, not really the wants. What do we need? What is going to benefit the district in the long run? And, that's kind of where, I think that's the conversation that we had that I was telling you, that's kind of where I was coming from. But in the last few meetings that we've been here, I think that we're all kind of on that same page as well. So, did I answer your question?
Yeah, so do you guys do you have any comments about what Marty has listed as priorities?
I just got one. So he did mention a long time ago about some door replacements to get the key padlocking, and I don't see any of that in here. Not that you can do it. I mean, is that still going to be something you're going to want to try to add in?
Well, if we're putting access, that's mainly,
Just thinking for your lock system.
that's mainly the middle school, if you really think about it. I mean, there are doors and hardware at all three schools that need to be addressed, but the middle school, the door frames and doors, and if you look on here, Dan has in here, where is the site money that you had, Dan? Middle school.
The stuff that's grayed out, yeah.
First one that's grayed out.
Okay, so, I mean, there's, if we're gonna put an access card system on.
That was the first one you said that was important.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
So, but
And if
on-
we're gonna if we're gonna put access card systems, on because you have the 4 or 5 pods down there, it's a little different than, having one school and just focusing on the exterior doors. We have to focus on the exterior doors for all pods, including the gym. So it's a little bit extensive.
So actually, access controls are under electrical,
Oh, there you go.
Thank you.
which, in reality,
Yeah,
that's.
electrical is kind of a pretty vague, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
To cover a lot of things.
So other comments? Maybe Rachel, you can share the survey. You have copies for everybody?
I do, actually. This survey is still open until tomorrow evening, so this is just a first blush. And the surveys were really different for community and parents than they were for staff and students. Because staff and students are using the facilities every day. They can speak to how they feel about the locker room or the bathrooms. It's different for those of us who may not be in the. So what you have, well, on heading, are the initial results of, we didn't ask questions, what we did is we ranked 10 different, or we provided 10 different possibilities and asked people to rank based on what was most important to them. So we have, and it doesn't quite match this, because how do you share this with the community, right? I had to help make sense of it. So the first one was improving campus safety and security, replacing corroded fire sprinkler system, replacing outdated electrical systems, replace aging heating system, replace siding, replace repair leaking roofs and windows, update interior finishes, improve site needs, update bathrooms and locker rooms, and replace corroded water lines. So like I said, it doesn't match the same language, but it was in a way that I think people could best relate to. So you'll see the next column over, 10, where it says most, that is their most preferred priority. So improving campus safety and security right now, we have 23 people that have said that's the most important, followed by heating systems at 17, and replacing and repairing leaking roofs and windows at 10. So this just gives you a chance to see, you can look at it for yourself now, but that's an explanation for you. Do you have any questions about this?
Was in line to what we were working through.
So there you go. And again, if you haven't taken the survey, it's open until tomorrow night.
I'm pretty sure you have.
Rachel, I'm sure you did the parent survey through Parent Square. How did you push it out to the community members? The survey?
We didn't specifically to the community. We just hoped that it would get passed along. It is hard to do.
So Dan, the spreadsheet that you handed out, is that reflective of kind of where, or maybe you're getting to it, where the board went on Monday night? What's some of the stuff you've already removed?
Actually, just, you know, to keep this process its own thing, I didn't incorporate any of their stuff.
Okay.
Really, the big difference to me was they didn't want to do any lighting. And I did, actually, I had already, just if you guys look through, you'll see I zeroed out all the lighting.
That's why I was wondering if you.
I've done that before the meeting, but they, it's only because Marty is working to get some grants for it. And,
Well, working with Energy Trust.
right,
If Energy Trust is going to take care of 70 to 80% of the project, then I think it's very worth our while to do this, because the amount of recycling and bulbs and ballasts that we're purchasing every summer when school's out, you know, it's just a no-brainer. And I was really hoping to have those figures tonight. It didn't happen because the Energy Trust came out with their new cycle, and which is a good thing for us, because in this new 23 cycle, they're giving even more money. So I'm gonna wait to get, I want to see what those numbers are. But I will eventually have a nice packet for that lighting retrofit, which would include every outside light, parking light, every single light bulb on our facility campus. Included, they even evaluated the football field lights, which, you know, I know it's on the solar panel and all that, but I mean, we looked at everything. It was the total package. So I think it's well worth, you know, hopefully we'll have that information to share with you guys at the next meeting.
The other thing is the board seemed to be interested in doing the remaining window replacement at the high school. So that wasn't really something that most groups here were interested in. It's not a huge dollar amount. I think it's like $175. But they seem to think, you know, we started it in the last pond, let's finish it in this pond. But it's not a big deal breaker. It's not a huge amount of money. Okay, so there were like the exterior windows, there were some things that were popular with two groups, but not all three. One is replaced the exterior windows. One is the site improvements at the high school, which was a variety of things, not just the concession building, but I think upgrades to the grandstands and storage buildings. The toilet room upgrades at the high school. So that was another thing that there's some difference of opinion about. Basically, like those toilet rooms, I showed you the pictures that are being used as storage. Is that something you do now, or is that something you just kind of?
So I actually had something come up about that today. At the middle school, we have a teacher that's pregnant, baby girl. And it's awesome, but I mean, teachers have babies, right? So one of the things we don't have, I mean, in the schools really is a respite.
Yeah.
You know, where did they go? You know, I don't know.
We had a teacher when I was there, and when she wanted to help, she just went into, off of the staff room, there's kind of a little supply room, and she just went in there.
Yeah.
Not that it's a good place, but it just,
Yeah. I mean, if we're not using the spaces, and it's just, you know, junk in there, it can be organized. Nice to have a respite for the faculty, you know.
the school board, even the toilet room upgrade, or, you know, something up at the high school. The kids have two places that they can use the restroom. And if you're like way down at the science end hall, there is restrooms there, but they don't use them.
Right, that's where the storage is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But they have to go all the way, and and who knows what they're gonna dilly-dally around with, on their way, and it's a lot of time wasting when you're sending them that far. I also said like for, social studies, long-term stuff, and there was one bathroom there in that hall. Is that still working?
The single restroom.
Yeah.
Is huge.
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah.
That one's still, yeah. Okay, so, but otherwise they've got 2 places and it's just kind of crazy to have restrooms there that nobody can use. It's good for the kids to have a restroom.
The spaces could definitely be utilized better.
Yeah.
Whether that's, custodial storage and a mop sink, which would on each end of the building, which we don't have. So they can save time and steps, turn dollars.
So the last item here on things that had support from 2 groups, I think that's a typo. It's not 650,000 for Electroville, it's a much lower number, so I don't know what that's all about. You guys even did have Electroville, so I think that was just a typo on my part. Additional projects, yeah. It's a good one. Additional projects for consideration. So 2 things that were talked about with this group that came up at the last meeting and maybe before was creating a secure vestibule situation in the entryway of this school. I took a real guess of what you should budget for. That's probably high, but we have to look at the project a little bit more just to make sure we have the right amount of money. It might just be all interior, which is a cheaper project than adding something on the outside. And then the other thing that's discussed is it wise to replace the EIFS siding or sort of put a Band-Aid on it until maybe the next bond. And that's a new project that wasn't in the long range facility report, but it has been discussed in the district and in this group. So are there, I guess I just kind of want to go through these, and we're not going to work in table groups, but I just want to get some thumbs up or thumbs sideways or thumbs down on some of these. The exterior windows at the high school, 140 grand, does that seem like something worth doing?
That's just the rest of
30
them, right?
degrees up.
They're the original windows, I take it.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
I would say yes.
Seems like a little bit of mixed response on that, but we'll say maybe leaning towards positive.
Is there are we losing heat is there?
Yeah, I mean, old windows are crappy.
Yeah.
Which part of the building is it?
That,
By the library, oh, yeah.
Over the library. But it's not useful.
But it's the same windows, I think, down all the way towards the girls' softball field.
All the classrooms along that side.
No, we were sure.
Not the library, just the library.
We replaced the whole side
Yeah.
last month, yeah.
And then out of the, I remember doing a section.
So it's like this library.
I didn't do the library. It stopped at the library.
so 2 out of 3 groups seemed interested in the site improvements at the high school, which have to do with site drainage, parking lot repairs, and some site lighting. So I zeroed out the site lighting just because it's part of Marty's potential project. I get down to about 340,000 if you do the site things at the high school. Again, go ahead.
Isn't there site improvement here at the school that would be?
Yeah, so that one didn't get as many yes votes for some reason, but I feel, I think a little more homework needs to be done with that. I think the drainage thing that is an issue, I suspect it's working the way it was designed. It's supposed to collect water and then slowly
Yeah, this.
go into the
one here.
system. Yeah,
Yeah. that's
it's
what-
just, it's not separated from kids, so it's a nuisance, a little bit of a hazard.
Do you landscape it or something some way?
Well,
or-
I mean, what a lot of
Do
schools
something,
do,
yeah.
what schools do is put fences around, which I think that's probably the solution.
What's the site improvement in the high school?
So at the high school, it's some parking lot repairs. There are some site drainage issues, which I suspect are similar to the middle school, where it's a combination of downspouts not draining into the storm system properly. And then there was site lighting that and then the other thing was the sewer repairs at the concession, so that you can get the toilets working again.
Think of all the sewage repair, probably the most important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe do you know what needs to be done at the parking lot?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a want, really, in my opinion. It'd be nice to do a 2-inch grind removal and repave, and, it'd be nice to get rid of the gravel around the shops out there and where the bus barn is, and have it all paved and restriped. I mean, that would be really nice, wouldn't it? But, I don't, we restriped the parking lots last summer. The parking lots are, they could use some maintenance, but it's more of a want, in my opinion. I mean, instead of need. Yeah.
Yeah, I really.
On the other hand of that, you really see the parking lot when you drive by the school, for just presence and looks. I mean, if you've got a nice new parking lot, it does have a much nicer appearance
So it's best foot forward
for the whole
too.
school.
Yeah.
I mean, you see that more than you see the front door.
Yeah.
But it is like that. You don't have to have, it's not leaking, it's not a leaky roof.
Yeah.
Well, it's $100,000. I can go for the 100.
Yeah.
I mean,
Or this drainage system out here.
yeah, so this question is if we just keep up on striping the cracks, can we make it 7 years?
Could extend it to,
Push it to the next.
I've
one.
done that on parking lots before.
extend it to
So
the bus barn. I mean, it sounds like that would work.
So what I'm hearing is the sewer repairs at the stadium concession is important. The rest of the site.
both
stuff.
concessions is important to address the sewer issues.
Okay.
I feel like I just need to throw out there the importance of the site improvements for drainage here.
Yes.
It's highly problematic, so it's not fun to have kids sliding around in mud because they think it's fun. When the rest of the school have the staff.
Like off the playground.
Yeah, it really does need to be addressed in my opinion. Karen, what do you think?
Well, I mean, yes, I mean, I would love if it was fixed, but along with that though, if we have other drainage problems that are causing damage to the building, that isn't technically causing damage to unless you consider the one that distracted on the parking.
So that kind of falls into the safety category for me
That's
out
right.
here. And not just the drainage system, the kids get muddy and they come into class, we're coming to the school and having to change that, but it's kind of like Dan was saying with the drainage from, the building, all the downspouts, they're designed to drain into the ground and then it leaches down into that metering device that goes out to the storm sewer or stormwater. And, if you're looking at the playground where our asphalt is, there's, part of that site improvement, I would redo or at least take a look at different options of how we can make it safer, the playground safer. Because we have some pretty good sloping hills and
Yes,
off
some
the
that have
basket,
that is
off the
right.
basketball, you have, the kids are gonna be running and, I know my 6-year-old gets hurt all the time, he just full bore it. From a safety standpoint, there's some improvements out here and I'm with Rachel on taking care of some of that.
Okay, the 2 projects, the secure vestibule. If that had been presented to you at the build a bond exercise, how do you feel you would rank that. Is that?
Could you explain it a little more?
Yeah, basically, the idea is, I think you guys did this at the high school. You, when you come to the school and you want to walk in the doors, at a school of this era, you just walk in the front door and all the office is on the left, so you know, check in. Or in school, you just keep walking. Nothing prevents you from just walking into the school. A secure vestibule would basically create like another set of doors, a glass wall and doors, so that after you get in, you can't, and they're locked. So you can't get into the rest of the school until you go into the admin area, check in, and then you go out another door that lets you go into.
So it kind of falls in line with the, in my opinion, it falls in line with the security access system, the access cards. And the security of getting people into the building. It gives you that extra security. If you have somebody that you don't want in your school, then you can stop them there.
Honestly, okay, I look at this and just in my simple mind thinking, well, couldn't they just build a wall? You know, you got the entry door and then you build a wall before the door, you know, before the doors that go into the cafeteria. Okay, I guess I don't see where 500,000.
Yeah, so it's a little conservative, I will admit that, but it's a wall, it's doors, it's all the electrical, it's probably new doors in and out of the admin or some modification of the admin area. They modify the reception desk a little bit for a new kind of traffic flow
They
through
do have a
there.
little open in here, don't they?
Um,
There's a top to the office people.
It would be, so whenever you do that, when you wall up part of the building and make a new room, that's part of the, currently part of the bigger room. That triggers HVAC, electrical, just some changes you have to make. You might have, you know, and then when you add in project costs, you know, it gets higher. It might not really be 500, you know, like I said, I'll take a little closer look at it, but just to play it safe and make sure there's enough money.
I understand the importance of it totally, but just.
So you would flow all that traffic through a different room just to get out?
No, so you can get out, it'll have doors that
Goes
exit
straight
out. You'd have to do that to meet.
Yeah,
So just like the high school, basically.
Just like the high school.
Yeah,
Where you
so,
can go through the
One
office.
person
or
could
you
go through the office. I got you.
so to exit, you still would just go straight out. But to get in, you have to.
A single person, yeah.
They could just put doors even into that last hall towards the gym, like then you have no place. You just have those two doors, everything else has already got doors to have to access. I mean, it wouldn't be the complete safest way, but it might be least expensive way to just throw some doors.
We just gotta get it to the other side of the hallway though, because otherwise all the kids from this wing have to go out of the secure area and back into the secure area for the stuff. My 2 cents is absolutely 100% support it, not $500,000. You know, we want to limit it to interior renovation.
Right.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
100,000. But I see where you were at. You were wondering if we might have to bump it out to.
Well, maybe bump it out, maybe, I haven't looked at it, so I don't know all the modifications you have to make in the current admin, maybe nothing. Maybe it's very simple. Tony has a question.
We just built entry
Very similar. And our budget is like 300. So that's not including the soft cost.
Yeah.
So, the number may or not be accurate, but it sounds like everybody wants to do it.
Are the schools secured right now during school hours?
Yes.
The doors are.
So are the front doors locked?
Oh,
They
yes.
are to buzz people.
You have to buzz people in.
So that works.
Seems like a good measure right now.
It does, does it work?
Is the
No, it's broken this one.
Well, other than,
Sometimes
Does
it's
our
about
simpler?
open.
if it was functional, I mean, does it serve your purpose? Does it?
Yes and
So-
no.
I mean, like, if it's working, that's fine, but if you
I
have
work
a
on it a
kid-
lot.
If you have a
Okay.
kid in the cafeteria or in the hallway right there, and they see somebody, there's nothing keeping them from going and letting people in.
Right.
And, you know, a 5-year-old doesn't have good decision-making skills, so
Sounds like we want to find a budget for it.
it's not as safe as it could be.
Okay, that's a good way to put it.
So could something different be done with the doors? I mean, there's,
Right.
if you spend $500, are you gaining any more?
Is it something that's gonna break?
Well, I think the other problem too is you got people who are in the office that aren't personally interacting. So you got the folks in the office and you got the people at the door. And so you may be touching base with after you unlock the door, but ultimately you're not having that interpersonal conversation and kind of doing your gut check before you're.
Right, before they can get down the hallway. or-
Yeah, and so this way, if they do get in, they're not in the two most populous parts of the school right off the bat, the gym and the cafeteria.
Has it been a problem keeping an eye on people or? Part of it hasn't really been
Takes
analyzed, I would imagine.
time and
Louder.
staff.
Yes. The answer to Tommy's question
Yes.
is yes.
It is hard to track people when they come,
Office can't often see who's coming in and out.
especially if like everybody's leaving when there's a lot of kids.
When it's lunchtime and there's 200 kids going through that section.
So maybe the numbers are a little scary, but the concept seems reasonable.
Sounds like it's a priority.
Okay. All right, what about the siding on the outside of this building? Is that something you guys think needs to be done now, replace it? Or
Are you talking about replace as opposed to?
replace as opposed to,
I think there's two spots that are bad on that front side that probably have mold in it. Yes,
or is
We
it,
have more than that.
is it,
is there more than two? I could see it from the road, and I know there's two.
is it a future bond thing? Is it something that needs to happen in this pond or a future pond?
That's yours there.
Sounds like someone did this.
I think painting,
So,
I think sealing. is-
We're having issues with, we have a couple roof leaks in classrooms. I think there's, what, probably 2 or 3, Karen? At
I
different
only know
times.
Paula's, so.
Yeah, well, I know that we've had 2 or 3 classrooms that have this. Right now, we have one that, we had evaluated, and it is the siding, the way the flashing is done, the roofing. It's a $10,000 repair to fix it, to tear everything out and fix it correctly. So, I would say that, yes, we need to do something with the siding. I am not a siding expert, but I know that the stuff that we have on this building is terrible. So if we were to replace it with, I don't know, I think John said, are you blanking?
The church did it, they had the exact same product.
Yeah.
They did it 5 years ago.
And I think that that's a great idea, but when we're doing this, we need to look at, what in the areas that we do have dry rot, we'll have to repair those areas when we're tearing off the siding. And we don't know what we don't know. We don't know the extent of it until we do some inspection. I've done the inspection on the roofing leak where it's leaking in through the siding and getting behind there. I've done some investigation for the windows here that need to be replaced in the siding to stop from the water coming in the windows here in the library. So there's more than just the 2 spots that you see from the road. If you go around the building, you really start to look at it pretty close. You need to do something. I think
I think 7 more years, it's gonna be bad,
Yeah, really bad.
very bad. I think that number should be doubled.
I think all sides.
Well, it's not
The
all.
north side.
Well, it's the ephes siding itself that we need to get rid of.
So that's a tricky thing. You can't, I mean, I wouldn't recommend trying to repair it. It's a replacement.
I guess my question was, is the issue widespread and sporadic around the whole building, or is it everything's on the southern face, or,
That's
is
Not
it something that's
necessarily.
even reasonable? to
Yeah, so we
consider?
have some over here on this side of the building, some over here, the windows, and this side here.
So the
So
answer is no facing.
It's kind, there's no,
Got it.
yeah, with the amount of rain that we have here, it's on all sides that you can see where we're having issues. If you're here during the day, take a look up at the eaves and you can visibly see it. Especially if it's rained really hard and then the sun comes out, certain portions of it will dry off, but then you can see like this wet area where it's holding water.
Okay, so I'm not convinced my number is good. I think it may be a little low.
I think you need to double it.
Yeah. Because there's a little bit of a ripple effect when you start doing siting. Might affect your.
It's all the gutters too. I'll have to come off, I think.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be easy.
You might have to replace some windows that you weren't planning to replace. It has a ripple effect.
The framing,
You might find some dry rot in the framing, and stuff like that. So
Right.
it's wood frame.
Well, any of the windows that we replaced here, it's not gonna hurt anything. All the windows in this building.
Well, I mean,
Like that.
that's your problem. Is this, do you deal with it or do you let it go?
Yeah.
Let the building get worse and worse.
I think, yeah, the wall would fall over. Yeah. I would almost put that ahead of your secure vestibule.
I don't know how we can justify not replacing it because we don't want to cover it.
Yeah, coating it's not
Yeah,
gonna be a
pretending
good
it's-
idea.
Right, it's like, it's not helping you.
No, it's just putting a Band-Aid on it. Yeah. Well, it's not addressing, whatever.
But it's such a big thing.
Going on behind the wall.
Well, coding it or mandating it still doesn't solve all the other issues where, flashing to have the proper corner detail and it's
Yeah.
still getting behind it and all that.
Yeah.
So,
I had to reprioritize this. I know there are two different groups. I would much rather address the siding than the site improvements at the high school. This just.
Yeah, I would take the window budget out of the high school for sure. and put it
Yeah.
Siding replacement here.
okay,
I don't know if I'm opening up a can of worms now, but
so here's what I'm thinking, you
So
guys.
shake out as we keep chopping. We can find.
Do you guys mind taking about a 10-minute break? Just save me one slice of pizza. But I have the spreadsheet here and I'm gonna re-crunch the numbers real quick based on what we talked about and see where we are.
Yep. Marty, have you ever had anybody look at the sign? Probably not a siding contractor.
Yeah.
They give you a number.
Griffith Roofing came out and did an evaluation of the classroom over here.
They tear off and remove siding.
No, they went up on the roof.
Oh, they just went.
And pulled up, some of the roofing, and I've been doing business. They're a trusted contractor that I've worked with for years, so.
I'm just thinking you need to get somebody to give you a budget for full removal and replace somehow.
Well, I could do that, but
Don't you have,
isn't that something that,
I mean, just have a budget, a rough number. Be nice to know.
Okay.
You don't do anything.
this is the dry pipe in the system? See the hole pipe?
Well, that's a big hole.
So, and that's how it's
She
rusted.
logged in, so it's
So
just.
I had an 18-hour day finding that hole, this whole system.
She was asking here for school.
Yeah.
We never talked about it, you could replace it. So she's at her conferences and she's.
We have to, it's, well, you always have a conversation.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be like.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this right.
You cut a lot of corners on this building.
No, it was just.
Thank you.
I come in under budget so they can get a bonus or.
Like muffler, right? It looks pretty good. I think you're right. It does look like muffler.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I remember when they replaced that drywall wall. Sure. It looked like a long process. They just cut it out in chunks. And they put the hardy plank siding on it. I think they're pretty happy.
Yeah, it's,
This is harder, much harder. That's why it's often the whole thing. There's a lot of details out there. It's not a trustable.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
I know you.
So I don't think the roof is leaking.
It's
Right,
just where-
the siding's leaking. But it's leaking. Because of the siding. So for that, you know what I would do for that drainage? I would extend those pipes for it, just on each side. And I would, if I was in charge of everything, I would just get a bunch of nice round boulders and put rocks in it. It's climb all those rocks. You know what I mean? So they don't get muddy. I think today's kids and parents might have a hard time with that. So no. It would last like 1,000 years.
Well, if you move it more towards the tree, and then just
You don't want to move it.
we don't want
That's a big.
to. Because
I think you could build something over it. Right. Period. So you could also just do your own filtration system. Remember, the structure.
Yeah, do it. They started fast back up there.
I don't think we need to spend a lot of money. No, but it's not real. I would keep it down. And a wet kid. Yeah. Probably has a good time. Yeah. It's gotta frustrate teachers. But you know, they can't relax, do that.
You can just buy all the kids right now. So I'm like, that you can play the mud, you gotta wear your ring gear.
I could imagine how many it must be. Whether we get.
I just think about.
And it is, it's in a tough spot. But there's no good spot.
I talk to her more than I go up there just because I'm the first person she calls. She go, well, you don't call me, mom, you don't give me a chance.
It was a.
You know, I will call her.
That was just to replace.
Then you take it off and then.
But like you said, you really got to study everything. It's gonna affect the windows. What else do we have to replace? The other gutters. You don't fix it. You've got to have to. I don't know how. Well, I know it's not used. I mean, we did one house.
Yeah,
For negotiating.
I tend to feel like I take out.
Yeah, they have problems.
Well, it's not legal.
Dad's side of this, the way I'm looking, well,
Insurance companies.
so Mary Lou, and Renee,
We put it on.
mom's side, they,
And
they don't have to worry about the way.
anything-
They've got four kids in there.
Horizontal.
I got my dad's side in here.
Can't have any water, past those shed water strips down, it just doesn't do well. And then like sheet siding, that would, no, it's just. They put water over it.
Then we'll be a fifth person.
That's it, that's it,
Family.
you know, so.
And it gets,
And if you get little cracks in it, it's.
it's mainly at the top.
Three other siblings.
So you don't do that. Installation cracks in driving range.
Oh, it's good in Arizona. Yes, like, you gotta watch products in the Northwest. You know, some things you shouldn't put in here, some things you shouldn't put in there. They get different moisture. Some you gotta watch. Not every product's designed for it.
You know, it was a new product when they did the school.
And it was great, and you put it up in sheets and it looks like stuff going. It's pretty,
It's pretty.
and it's fast. Yeah. It was efficient with the inflation. It was a money saving deal, not to do brick all the way. You know, it's all the way around.
It's too bad you can't just
That would have been much good.
fur it out a little bit, you gotta put your color, and then just put siding.
She will start doing it.
Maybe there is a way to cap it. It would have to be looked at on 3 different companies. What's your idea? Somebody doesn't know. You know, I would.
There's been other schools that were built,
You know, typically you don't want to have that stuff underneath there. Plus you want to take it off to see it. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah. You gotta keep your roots, you gotta keep recycling.
Yeah, that's
On a building. In order to Well, if you had this stuff in the house, there was just like, it would have been gone. Yeah. You're not gonna ignore it.
You see the front of my house?
You had a window problem.
She has this balance.
And I probably.
Couple prescriptions and vitamins.
You know,
I take this in the morning.
I don't know, I might have to. On mine, I can just do whatever I want. It's all good enough.
Yeah. I know. No, to go for it.
And the other ones.
The increase is.
That's hard to no, she had it all set up.
I don't disagree with that, would be a good
Yeah, I mean,
system.
so. She had it all set up, and it's really good, but she gets down to
We gotta
about
shut the gates
5%.
I think that's- Because I've gone into.
Right above it, so when that one's at, she pulls that one out. She's done. Yes. I mean, but she's doing one.
And then I've gone.
But for one was
None of them have those.
because she would take
Zero.
those two.
It comes down to.
dinner,
who's
And then that's
There's
not.
questions you have. Because I remember having to ask them, I'd have to-
Hey, folks, we're gonna come back together.
Let's see, let's build.
I think I have,
It's so hard.
Okay, my friends.
okay, I think I got all the numbers. All the numbers plugged in, you guys, and it's a little hard for you to read this, unfortunately. Let me see if I can
What page are we on?
improve that.
This one.
Maybe that's a little bit better, but anyway. Here's what I did. At the high school, I still kept the old windows at 0. And yeah, oh, I made sure we included the sewer repairs at the stadium concession. But everything else is zeroed out. At the middle school, I don't think I changed anything. And then at the elementary school, I added, replace the windows. Well, that was in there. I added, replace the siding and add the new secure vestibule. That bumped those numbers up.
And the mud hole?
That includes, well, so that is down under site storm drainage improvements. So I put some money in basically for fencing. So anyway, you get to a total, the bottom right on the green side is 10.9 million. Which is right around 11 million. So with this,
How much did you put for siding on the?
the total on the siding is, including markups and everything, would be close to 600,000.
Okay.
375 cost.
So one of the big dollar amounts that I see in the condition assessments is kind of like we talked about the domestic piping in this building. It may not necessarily all need to be replaced. And this, I guess, this is just a question for you, is there's a ton of money in distribution piping for boilers. Are we at a point that all the schools need all new distribution piping, or is that something that we could potentially find some savings?
That's a great question, and
It's just such a big number.
it is, but I think we need, if we don't need, and here's, if we don't need all of that, there's investigation that needs to be done. I can't say for a fact that, at the high school, we got to replace all the hot water. I don't know that. I don't know that. We're going to have to go in and cut sections out and visually do inspection, right? But I do know that there are portions of it that are bad. So, how do I don't have a crystal ball. How do I answer the question?
So that, I mean, that's sort of the rough show is we have buckets of dollars to do certain work. Like Maria, I've talked about at this point in the process, you don't have that laundry list of stuff yet. So that will happen. You know, when you get to the point of doing the work, then you're really gonna have to dive in, figure out, okay, how much piping do we really have to replace? How much, which of these unit ventilators really have to be replaced, which we have,
Versus the repair.
right? So,
Does the boiler piping not deteriorate from Mount Angel water because it's?
Oh, I highly doubt that. Yeah, and, you know, I haven't been here, but I don't know what the water treatment procedure has been with any of the systems. So I know that there has been testing on it, but, you know, the Mount Angel water, actually with all its iron and stuff that it has in it, is actually better, you know. I'm not a chemist or a scientist or anything, but it's better for the piping and the corrosion. It won't corrode as fast. So, but there again, that's just a thought or opinion, doesn't really mean anything. I don't know, did I answer your question?
Sure.
I don't.
Sounds good.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
okay, so how do you guys feel about where we're landing on the bond proposal? Does it seem about right? Are there questions?
but what's the target figure? We were aiming for
11 million,
11, so
Yeah.
7 and 4.
7 plus 4,
Okay.
yeah,
So we're right there.
we're right there.
So I guess, was there anything else that came out of any of the meetings that we had been potentially funded that were a priority to any of the groups that we may want to look at? Trim, if we need to trim a little bit here and there to try to make it fit.
That's a good question.
I'm thinking back to the standpoint of if it's on the bond list, you can do it if we have the money, but if it's not on the bond list, even if we have the money, we can't do it.
Like re-put new metal on the bus barn, that's on there, right?
I don't know, most of us want to check this here. So that's kind of why I was looking at, like, what's the next biggest thing, and it's like, just, you know, some of it's the ductwork and the distribution piping, so like, maybe if we were confident that it would be a full replacement, you could trim a little bit, and if you do need it, it would still take priority over, let's say, the bus barn, but at least the bus barn would be on the list, so it's an opportunity in the event that.
So one of the things that, you know, when you're saying that, talking about that, you know, we've talked about the windows at the high school and here. But and I think we talked about the middle school windows a little bit. Down at the middle school, there are windows that are still the single pane, not the double pane, and they should be addressed.
The long ones.
Right,
Yeah.
along with off the library there, I know that there's
I
some
think I
there.
watched the pods. I
But
think
there's some various ones, you know, that should probably be addressed there.
So one thing
That's little.
One thing that only showed up on one group, I believe, is the toilet room upgrades at the high school.
Yeah, because those are pretty nasty, right?
But I still have that on the list.
But those
So-
are being,
Well,
How do you guys
which
feel
would
about
include the showers, right, the locker rooms?
Potentially, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that would be in the plumbing. That's included.
Okay.
But I listed the toilet rooms in architectural because, of course, there's plumbing, but there's a lot of finishes, walls, floors and stuff that need to be upgraded. You can't just go in there and hose it down and start using it again. And if you replace plumbing, you're gonna tear out wall finishes. So I view it as more of a, architectural materials issue and less of a plumbing issue. There'd be obviously some plumbing involved as well. So that is on the list.
Is this,
Even though only one group really was for it.
is the sewage for the, back by the concession stands at the high
That's-
school that stayed?
That stays, yeah.
Yeah, both concessions.
And Marty, when you said, because we were talking about the doors at the middle school, was that, and then you said, well, you kind of put it in that provide access controls and exterior doors. would that include replacing doors that needed, or
No.
does that have to be a separate?
All those two.
Security thing.
That's a separate thing.
But that's in there.
Is that?
No,
That's why I was asking.
It's not in there.
It wasn't a priority.
So I asked them.
Yeah.
Replace the door.
Doesn't make sense to put access control on it.
If you're not gonna replace the
We're
door,
not gonna replace the frame of the door. It doesn't make any sense.
that should be in there.
Yes.
The doors gotta work properly.
Yeah, they're pretty old doors.
They got the in-ground closures and the wood frame. Terrible.
I'm really glad we're having this discussion because the comments on student surveys came up a lot about the doors at MAMS and having to work hard to either open or close them. And I personally really feel like the doors need to be addressed at MAMS. They're secure, but you have to work at it with some of it, which is not the way it should.
Because they're kind of warped and everything. or-
Yeah, when it was, my door wasn't shut tight.
much they remind
They're
you?
not completely open, but they go, it's just our ghost, you know, and I go shut the door. But it was.
Same doors as when they built
The
it.
door, yeah. I went through that.
What was the number of the doors? We have to have.
It looks like we had 160,000.
Yeah, they don't line up, it's not lining up.
So then the only other question.
It's not every door, by the way. It's those wood doors with like 3 windows next to them, the main entry into the classroom wings.
So I know that the LED got pulled out because even though there's a ROI and there's a lot of expense to it, ultimately it's not as important as a boiler or a leaking roof.
Yeah,
The other question was if ETO is gonna do 70 or 80%, we still need to try to bond fund 20 to 30% of that $800,000 price tag for the LEDs. Or is that gonna?
There was a number put to that?
Well, if you go through the condition assessments, there's like $856,000 LED upgrades for the whole.
Was the whole lighting.
So I don't want to comment on the number. I'm gonna have those figures hopefully next week for you guys. Okay, and so I don't want to guess. Here we go. Here's the,
Marty, do you know, will ETO fund the whole thing or just the part of it?
in my experience, it's either in past projects that I've done with lighting upgrades for buildings. It's never been under 70%, and the highest I've got was like 82%.
So I
of
think
the
that's where
entire
Joe's
project.
going.
Yeah, so that was my question is if, do we need to bond fund 30% of the LED upgrades in order to make sure you have the funding to get the ETO?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yeah, so I think that's,
So we got. So
Would that come out of electrical then?
we should,
$180,000.
I'm just gonna make a note of that and we'll see what number you get. And then we can, I mean, there's still a little wiggle room in here. So we can make adjustments before the presentation to the board if needed. I think that's a good thing.
We already reviewed the answer or the responses from the teachers and students.
We have not received those. There are, I need to do some cutting and pasting of all of the comments because it's a Google form and you don't always see unless you scroll down. So I have to cut and paste, put it all on. I'm happy to share all those comments with you. Easy to do.
I'm just curious how well what we're doing aligns with.
For the teachers and the students, just in terms of what I've read through in both, there's really a sense, a lack of a sense of pride in the facilities. Feeling, and many comments saying, we deserve better. And for the staff saying, students deserve better. And that's really the sentiment, more than the technical aspects that we're dealing with here. But I will certainly, I can send that out to everybody next week. Happy to do that.
Problem with this phone, it's mostly none of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately. Marty, is there any other doors? Like, does the high school have plagued with door problems too? Or is it just the middle school?
Well, when we do the access controls, all of the exterior doors will have to be addressed at all 3 sites or 4 sites.
I was talking interior too, any push hardware.
The interior, yes, we need to look at that because I believe at the high school, you know, if we were in a lockdown mode, the teachers actually have to get their key and go outside to lock their door and then, you know, they should be able to lock their door from the inside.
Yeah.
But all the locks are backwards, are not working.
I think you need $100,000.
Some of that is the same for the MAMs too, for the middle school.
Most, yeah,
Yeah.
you're out,
Yeah, you
you're
got,
out in the elements, then you open the doors. you
Yeah,
have to
so if you
lock
get
it outside.
you know, from a safety and security standpoint, you know, it's-
Okay, so I'm gonna,
so,
that's not a huge dollar amount to replace door hardware, but it's something that should be.
Yeah.
included. So we'll look into that as well.
Something changed.
Okay, so it seems, oh, go
Did
ahead.
you take the vestibule out? Let's say
No, I left it in.
at 5,
Well, the total, I did a number of 350,000 construction costs. And that
I'm just
works
wondering
out
if
to
that
about
should be taken
600.
out to put into a budget for more things the kids could see, fixing doors and hardware myself, but I don't want to.
Maybe, I mean, let's see where it
I don't
all
think we need
shakes
to.
out.
You might not have to.
I think there's a couple things in there that are still big enough numbers
I mean,
that we can
I just hate to see it.
crowdfund it from
I
other.
just hate to see it not listed as something we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And it gets lost, you know?
Yeah, I think it should be listed.
well, you know, if we're redoing the bathrooms, remodeling the locker rooms, the bathrooms and updating, you know, the fixtures and doing that, in restrooms, that's gonna be huge.
And that's happening in this, that's in.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah.
part of the restroom.
Yeah, but just keep in mind that the work in the locker rooms is really just like some plumbing fixtures. It's not like a whole refresh.
so you're talking about the boys locker room at the high school.
And the girls.
I thought we did the girls in the last one.
Well, yeah, I
The
mean,
showers.
that's the thing, that it's the showers, the, you know,
Tile.
the faucet device,
Oh, okay.
it's all rusted. So,
Big spot.
you know,
The girls in the spot.
Okay, I guess.
but it's not a whole refresh, you're right. They're
Yeah.
in decent shape.
Yeah, they had a pretty good upgrade. in girls'
Yeah.
locker room with
The shower,
the
area,
shower areas.
yeah, it's just as bad as the boys' shower area. It's terrible.
So,
Right.
But I thought we decided.
It's the same.
No, but
You don't want to change
I
it.
see the football players. And
those girls.
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't go in the girls' locker room ever. So, I don't-
So I think we're at windows at MAMS, doors at MAMS, some additional door hardware and partially funding.
The ETO, yeah, and I wrote those 3 things down.
Perfect.
So what I wanted to do before we conclude tonight is talk about the presentation to the board. So obviously I need to update the spreadsheet a little bit. And I'll get that to Rachel next week. Remind me again, Rachel, when the board meeting is.
February 13th.
So February 13th, we need to present what we've come up with to the board. It's better if some of you do it, than if Rachel and I do it. I'd rather hear from you guys. So this is the audience participation part where do we have 2 or 3 folks who be willing to do the presentation?
What day is it?
Monday, the 13th.
The day before Valentine's.
I'm more than willing to be there, whether or not it's as a presenter or just to sit on the sideline, answer questions.
I will say I watched Silverton's presentation that the committee did to the board, and it was very, very powerful. To watch, they could tell they went through the process, and it was super important to them, and they were able to really convey to the board you know, how important this was in their backing of it. So I think it's super important if we could have some.
So we'll put together a PowerPoint. What I would suggest is maybe Rachel set up a Zoom meeting And those who are interested, for sometime next week, we can talk about the presentation and what we want to show to the board. I did do a presentation on Monday, so they kind of know a little bit about what you guys have been doing, but I think it'd be good to kind of walk them through how you got to where you are tonight. And there's one other thing I was going to say about that. No, I forgot. So yeah, so I think that's important. I think that, well, I'll be there and Rachel will be there and I'll walk you guys through it. I think, like you're saying, it's really important if you guys do it. So the last piece of it is, and maybe the most powerful part of it is, why this bond? So I'd like to just have a little discussion with you guys. If you had to tell your neighbors, if you had to tell the school board why you came up with what you came up with, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we asking our neighbors to consider a tax increase? So I'm just going to open it up to you guys and then share your thoughts.
So I'll tell you the same thing I've been telling everybody, that is, these are needs. We've all sat in the room, we've cut all the wants. These are the needs. And they're needs that not only have a current dollar value, but they have a future dollar value if we don't do it. And the other big thing was, it's obviously the $4 million matching fund, but we don't know that, so. But that's pretty much how I've been telling everybody is everybody who I talk to knows what I do for a living, and I say, this is what they need to even get close to back to where they need to be. And there's no fluff in this. Even we just talked about 4 more things that we really need to put in there. That's not to go over 11 million. That's, we're going to go find where you're going to cut 400,000 to fund those other 4 things. And and furthermore is limiting it to the 7 plus the 4, knowing that we can get on a more appropriate cycle of bonds falling off every about 10 years, so that we can continue to do this without raising their taxes in the future. So
That's a huge point right there, I think. Right.
I think that's the biggest thing. When you sit down and tell somebody, we've thought about the next 40 years and trying to make it so that we get money every 10 years to try to extend the life of these buildings, so that we aren't at the point of a huge bond for a new new $75 million middle school or something like that. Just knowing that we're trying to think that far in advance, it gets a lot of people on board, I think.
Good.
I think it's important for people to think about the fact that this is never going to get cheaper. It's just going to get more and more expensive. And then adding that extra $4 million, into it, because at some point we may not qualify for it. We'll be like Rachel, so we're going to go down further in the list every time we, don't get it. And so to lose down $4 million, huge.
And people may not understand that we get it now or we lose it. We don't get to stay qualified for it. So we have to reapply if we want to do it again.
One thing I would tell people too is, if they ask, why don't you just pay for it out of your budget? You've got to be clear on your current budget too, that you don't have a lot of money sitting around. You can't replace the boiler if you wanted to. There's no other way to do this than getting a bond so you can make the improvements you have to make.
Yeah.
And it's not just us, like that's it in general.
That's
like school
everybody's in the
need
same boat.
bonds to pay for these types of things.
You're going to be asked, and be honest with your budget. It's like, we just don't have it. We're making a plan to do it in big lump sums so we can get it efficient priced. And it's a no-brainer.
And the part of the stuff too is, if I think about it, the upgrades to the security system, the boilers and the critical structure that we're doing, a lot of times when you do these projects, you incur extra maintenance costs. But for what we're doing and how we're approaching it, to stabilize a budget we do have going forward, it's not like we're doing stuff that's going to increase our, the following years of maintenance costs to take care of.
It's good.
the idea of continuous maintenance, just like in your own home, which was in the home you grew up, and, you know, the things just fall apart, and then they become more expensive, the longer you push it out.
And it comes down to having the right manpower to take care of the properties the correct way too, which is also a struggle for our school district.
What about safety and security? Any thoughts about that?
Well, I would just like to add kind of what I said, if the building isn't sound, then it's obviously not safe. And if we can't get it to there, it's just gonna get worse and then we're not gonna have a building that we can be in. I mean, we have to get these buildings to where they're not falling apart.
Like I said, some of these items are such large ticket items that if you don't bond fund a boiler,
Yeah, we can't maintain it the
we
way it is
can't
presented now.
find that much money. You know, it's one thing to find a few $1,000s for a ventilation unit. You can't find $576,000 for a boiler.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, to Marty's point too, is everything that we're doing is to free up resources and funding to allow us to have that to take better care of the buildings in the future. Because we haven't had that because so much money and resources is going into repairing these things that we're asking them to do.
Right.
And it's for our future, our children. Always bring it down to people we're serving.
So how does this affect the experience of the kids in school? This is still a lot of nuts and bolts stuff. Can you articulate what difference it might make in the educational experience?
The 3 words I keep saying. More safe and dry. Those are the 3 I'll take.
A little muddy.
And it's,
But they're still money.
but number, the biggest item on the parent community facility survey was to improve campus safety and security. Locks and doors, and that's on parents' minds too. When they're sending their precious ones off to school, they're anticipating they will come home safely. With a lot of knowledge in there.
I imagine the older kids would be more affected by, you know, if it's too cold or too hot. You know, little kids, I feel like they just or go with the flow, but the older kids, they see it. They don't, if it's really hot, they might not want to go to school that day.
Like if the water fountains are working and the toilets are working, I think the kids will notice that.
So the door open.
Yeah.
It's out of use.
Okay.
No water, you go to the bathroom, there's no water comes out of the sink. You know, just all these simple things that we take for granted.
I mean, if you look down the list, we're not doing a lot for the kids. I mean, really, right? It's all building. So, I mean, they're in the building, so it's important, but like, we're not painting their fingerprints on the walls or, you know, we're not doing a lot of stuff looking through it. And I don't know if we can
But it
change.
is for the kids.
It is for.
So that, I
Yeah.
think that's the message you guys need to think about is how do you connect
How do you connect?
fixing the HVAC
Yeah.
system to student outcomes?
Yeah.
And I think there is a connection.
There is a way
I
to,
can pull up some information about the Clean Air Act and the
Right.
health of kids. and what
There you go.
they're breathing in.
Kids
That would be the way to
middle
do it.
school will notice if they have one room.
Yeah.
Or freezing cold room. They will know when the bathroom is usable, that the locks, when you open the door, oh, that came off again, well, we're gonna pull a screwdriver or whatever. and
yeah.
Stick that on, you know, or duct tape. A lot of duct tape.
Or if they're not having to push twice to get the door open. I think
Right,
replacing
exactly.
the door is a pretty big thing.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a couple of things in there that definitely can get tied even to staff safety and liability. I'm thinking electrical. I'm thinking of the instances where exposed panels are used as light switches.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, that is a safety and a liability for our staff members. I know we're talking about students, but pulling staff in as well.
And possibly the school district itself could absorb some of the things like the handprints on the wall or something, you know, graffiti or something, that can be in-house, you know, I mean, taken care of.
Well, there is a little money in each school for some interior improvements, you know. We kind of made it small, but there's still something to do, which I think will help.
That the kids would notice.
Maybe, hopefully. These are great, you guys. So the things I heard were best value for the community. So being good stewards of community assets. It's for our future and it's for the kids, warm, safe and dry. How a school feels makes a difference to a kid in their education. And in general, creating a safe and secure environment for kids is really important to parents. And we're doing all that in this proposal. So I think those are all good messages that you guys can, you know, think if there's other ways you want to explain it, but as we work on preparing a presentation to the board, I think those are the kinds of things that they would like to hear from you guys.
So a lot of this too is, let's be honest, if there's water running down the inside of the window, it's a distraction to the sixth grade. And so there's a lot of these things that I think will help limit learning distractions, but also limit the amount of resources, not just Marty's resources getting tied up, but teaching resources of, I've got to go let a kid out of the bathroom because the door's locked, you know, the door lock broke again, and that kind of stuff. Eliminating those disruptions due to faulty facilities. I don't know if we can make a tie there, but there seems like there's something there.
And I think a very practical one too is fixing the mud hole.
Mhm.
I mean, parents are having to wash more clothes
Yeah.
probably, and
Yeah.
and that's the simple kind of boots on the
Yeah.
ground thing.
Uh-huh.
But parents and kids and well, the kids would be disappointed.
Improving the trip hazards around the playground and the drainage out there.
I know, but
You know, that's
that
gonna,
might be a good.
yeah, it's a little, it's an improvement. It's something that's visible. You can see when you drive by or the kids around the plant, you know, if we're talking about what's gonna make the kids feel better about walking into the building. You know, a fresh coat of paint, like I goes a long ways, you know, and
Painting something's big.
you know, with a logo of each school on maybe a wall, you know, that's, you know, we can,
You can
Yeah.
pride it up pretty quick with
Yeah.
some simple paint, you know.
those new sign is at the high school that says John F. Kennedy, a big small bar. You know,
You know, one thing I think is exciting too, if it works, the 7-year thing I think is really big to do another bond. Because it's say you could click off those boilers and get all that stuff. This bond, your next bond can either go for more of the, not fluffy things, but just a different type of thing. Not boilers, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, at some point.
It could be
we're
something
gonna-
completely different than focusing on your.
Facility.
you know,
Yeah.
really necessities. That's really good potential. It shouldn't be understated how, but you can't really state that too much because you don't know if it's going to work or not. But anyways, I think that's promising.
You don't want to tell me you're gonna go for another.
Yeah. you said-
Yeah.
But in this room,
I
I
want to
think
say
that's
we
a
will have the opportunity.
more exciting process.
We have the opportunity.
to have a bond without raising taxes.
Yeah.
I
We
think
want to create this opportunity in the future.
one of the things that might be relatable for folks is something that Dan mentioned at the first meeting, and that is that there's a big difference in terms of your car falling apart because you're not taking care of it, and then end of life. And we're at end of life. It's not that we haven't been doing the repairs that are needed. It's like, it's just done.
Yeah.
And people
Good way
can
to
relate
put it.
to that. There's only so long that you can keep a car before
Gotta
it's,
replace it.
you gotta
Yeah.
replace it.
Although I know a guy with a Volvo that has 400,000 miles.
400,000.
Wow.
Wow.
I do think we're gonna have to, I don't want to say own up, but I think in the conversations, there's gonna need to be a lot of times we're just gonna have to directly account for the question of, why didn't you guys do this in the last bond? And that's a question that I know I've gotten.
That won't be a question for the school board they get it, but it will be a question as you communicate about the bond in, the months leading up to the election. That is definitely going to be a huge question.
Christine
Why?
has a great response to that.
I was gonna say, what's the answer?
Well, because that was 10 years ago. I mean, imagine how much stuff can happen in 10 years,
Yeah.
if you think about that. So, I mean, when they went through that bond, the boilers were probably working fine. I'm sure they didn't just go and think, oh, we're gonna do all this other stuff. Who cares about the boilers? I'm sure all of that stuff was working
They did what was priority for them at that time,
correct,
and now we're doing what's
right?
Is that when we added the nitrogen system to the sprinklers here, maybe, or when was that? And then we're not using it, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay,
There's no sense in using it when the pipe's already,
They're already out.
rusting and falling apart.
It's too late.
but we were
Evidently.
going for safety. And that's why we changed the middle school, we moved the office to the front. That was a huge cost. And then the commons at the high school and
Right.
addressed locker rooms and
That
the
was
safety of that.
10 years
office.
ago. 10 years is a long time.
I mean, so like, not to beat about Silverton, but I watched their bond thing and it was fascinating. And they were talking about how people are gonna be really upset because why are you gonna put money into the new high school? And they're like, it's not the new high school anymore. People have to stop thinking about it like that because it's 20 years, because they literally are budgeting money in their bond for a new HVAC in the new high school because it's 20 years. I mean, think about how old our HVAC is. That we've just been kind of, so,
60 years.
I think that
It's that old.
yeah.
1960.
They're also
Really?
building all that stuff downtown, so I think.
It's time.
There's
70s, right?
Lots can happen in 10 years.
Yeah.
Really, if you think about it, this stuff, this HVAC stuff has only really been really bad the last year. Like when I first started here, I bet you it wasn't on Troy and Gail's mind because we weren't spending all this extra money fixing all these little things. I mean, it really just started to come to a head this last year. So,
Prior to the last one, I know this one, we were kind of blessed in the fact that we did the facility condition assessments that rolled into the RFP, which is rolled into the bond. And I'm just wondering if that same process was followed last time, or if we could hang our hat on, we did more homework this time.
Good point. I don't.
You did go
have an
through,
answer to
it's a
that.
long process.
I thought we did a pretty
Sherry
thick process last time.
Sherry was on
It was
school
very
board,
thorough.
and she was the only one on school, she might have some answers.
It was very thorough.
I was just curious if the condition assessments and the long-range facility plan had happened directly before the last bond. It did.
I think Mount Angel's
A
always
lot of
very
earthquake stuff.
careful
Yeah,
about
we did
it.
that same.
yeah.
It was the same, okay. That was just one of the possible responses.
And the gym at middle school, gym floor, yeah, before that floor, oh my, that was horrible.
Yeah, but we only have 2 rows of bleachers.
But just don't invite,
It's important what Joe said though, because we this time around also have done our homework. And so, and all of that is available on the website, so people can see that we have been thorough. It has rolled into, it's been a process.
They want, send them through the 182-page condition assessment.
Okay, so we're a little after 7. Any final thoughts or comments? Rachel?
I'm going to send a Zoom invite, and because I didn't grab names of who would like to present, what I'll do is I'll just send a blanket Zoom invite out. If you can make it, great. If you want to make it but can't, you'll let me know. But I'm gonna send it for Monday at 5:30. I know that's not gonna be ideal for everybody, but I would rather do it sooner rather than later, so that when a group does come together, we have time to look at the presentation and go through it. So I'll send that out to everybody, and if you show up at the Zoom, then hooray. And if you can't make it but want to, let me know. How does that sound? Okay,
I want to, but I'm cancel what's up.
I know you.
That's right.
I also want to express my gratitude to all of you. It is not easy to pull away from family life and after working long days and then coming to do this work, but this work is really important. You've made this process just immensely better by being here and contributing and being great thought partners. So
Thank you so much for all that you have sacrificed to be here for this process.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really think you guys are a great group. This has been a lot of fun for us. This is not the sexiest project. But, I mean, they're really important.
Yeah, they are.
And you guys understand that, and I think you wrestled with a lot of, difficult decisions and really reached great consensus as a group. And I think that's pretty cool. So you guys should pat yourself on the back. And so I'll be on the Zoom call Monday,
Okay.
and look forward to the next step in this process. But thank you, guys.
Can you make like a picture of the schools and like broken apart, like showing the pipes that are broken or that need?
Well,
Does that make
so
sense?
the next, in terms of, yeah, there'll be visuals to help sell the bond, and we can work with the district on how we can help with
And the
that.
kids playing in the mud.
Yeah. I have a feeling the kids like that.
If
I would feel like
anybody
they're-
wants to know more about the actual action plan for the bond and when mailers are going out, when we're doing forums, that's all been planned. This just hasn't been the place to share that.
Oh, okay,
Just email me and I'll share it with you,
okay.
okay? Because it's all been really well thought out.
Oh, good, okay.
Yeah, lots going on in the next 3.5 months. for sure.
Is the bond gonna be voted on May?
Yes.
May?
Yeah, May.
Did you get your volunteers before the board?
Yeah, well, that's February 13th is when.
So
So somebody did.
Monday will.
No, we only got one volunteer so far.
We'll have more.
Well, I'm gonna be in Texas, so I can't do it.
Yeah.
So we'll fill
Texas sounds fun.
Well, thank you, guys.
it. Thank you. You did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody.
So get some pizza.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll cycle.
Wish I was.
Yeah, those are the next phase.
Yeah.
Someone's gotta print it out. They made little posters.
Yeah.
and building.
We had a pack